Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Tatura Rymide, who is the Fusion champion for the holiday season of 2021. We'll be going over the build, the full grades. I'll be showing you some battle examples, some footage. You get to see the animations, the champion in action, and then I'll give you my full thoughts at the end on how I would grade Plarium in terms of designing this champion. Would I change anything? Do I think it's balanced? Does it need a buff? Is it too strong, too weak? We will get into absolutely everything so you have full context heading into your journey for this Fusion. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, a quick reminder that I am on the test server. I don't have this champion on my live account or something via some summoning session or something. So I am on a test server, test account for Raid that we have access to get you guys content as soon as possible. But let's go ahead and do a quick refresher of the kit and the base stats here. So when I first went over this champion on my channel, I actually made a mistake and I messed up the 80 and the 50 on the numbers here. So I said that you could book this up to a 70% chance of decreasing accuracy, but that's not true. It's actually a base of 80, and then you can book it up via two different books that add to the debuff chance of taking it from 80 to 100. So you can make this a very consistent big version of the 50% decrease accuracy here on the A1, which is super handy, especially in some of those boss fights where you're going to be building a resistance team to be able to sustain it and kind of win a longer fight if you're trying to progress through content. Something like Bommel in the Doom Tower, this would be a great A1 for a situation like that. Then for the A2, we have got place a block debuffs buff and a 60% increase defense buff on all allies for 2 turns, and this books to a 3-turn cooldown. I actually really like that. That's super impactful. Blocking debuffs is one of the most impactful things you can have on your entire team. It's going to be good in basically any situation because your opponents are always going to be trying to debuff you, and you're just immune to it for 2 turns. And then on top of that, you become way tankier as a team with the big version of increased defense, and then a 3-turn cooldown means it is going to cycle nicely. So I really like that. It's an almost permanent buff to your debuff resilience and the tankiness of your entire team. Then for the A3, we have got an AoE while also placing perfect veil on all allies except this champion, obviously because it's going to be kind of acting as a pseudo ally protection when you place veil on everybody but yourself. Then also place a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns equal to the damage inflicted. So the shield is not going to be super impactful. It functions similarly to a miscreated monster, where if you want the shields to be big, you've got to get crit rate, crit damage, and all of that. And this champion does seem to hit decently for a defense champion, definitely above average. So if you built this as like a defense nuking ability, like if you wanted mass shields for the context of like a spider run or something, you could do that. You could go that route and probably hit decently with this ability. But I think we'll go into the building and the context and all that stuff later. But I do think you're going to be building this champion more as a support instead of like some defense scaling nuker. Then we also have a passive here that is, when attacked, reflect 30% of the damage dealt to this champion back to the attacker, while also a 30% chance of placing a freeze on the attacker for 1 turn. And there is no cooldown on this, so that's going to be very consistent baked in value to the champion. That's just kind of always occurring. Placing veil on your allies means this champion's going to kind of get more heat than the rest of your team and going to be placing debuffs on the opponents, reflecting damage as well. So definitely a cool passive here that synergizes well with the kit. And then an aura of 35% in Doom Tower battles, which is always nice. 35% is big, and it makes sense with the design of the champion that it would be a defense aura. So a lot going on and a very solid kit here in general. Then in terms of the base stats, I think the base HP is a little low for a champion that's going to be placing veil. You want them to be very tough. I would like that to see that be like 21, 22,000, but it's not too low. The base attack does not matter. It might as well be 0. We don't even need to pay attention to it. The base defense is actually pretty high, up over 1,400, obviously, with a legendary that's going to scale with defense, so that is good. You'll get a lot of value out of like defense percent chests and stuff like that. Base speed's over 100. We like that. It's not super high, but it's definitely not low. The crit rate and crit damage are pretty normal, and I think for most of you out there, you're not going to be building this as a damage dealer, so it's largely not going to be the biggest of deals. And then about base resistance of 50 is very sturdy, with a base accuracy of 10 is always nice. It's going to help you hit those accuracy thresholds for placing debuffs. So all in all, between the kit and the base stats, a pretty solid legendary and a good addition to the game. But now let's do a little bit more of a deep dive. Let's talk about building this champion, the booking, the masteries, and then I'll show you the champion in action as well. All right, so here we go with the Tatura that I've got built here on the test server. And if you're curious, I can pull up the total stats right there if you want to take a look and compare it to something you are putting together as well. The main thing we're looking for is a good amount of defense and HP to make sure the champion is super tanky, while also hitting a good speed and resistance and accuracy threshold. So then as we move into the actual gear itself, the banner, you're probably going to be going with accuracy most times, maybe resistance if you're trying to use the champion as your A1 accuracy debuffer in a high resistance situation like bomb or something. And then you're obviously looking for defense, HP, and speed as the substats. The amulet can be defense or HP with a good blend of accuracy resistance in these substats. And then the ring, same thing, good blend of defense and HP is what you're looking for. Just as much tankiness as you can get out of the ring slot. Then for the boots and the artifacts up here, the boots are an interesting one because this champion is not a meter booster or anything like that. The speed doesn't have to be insane. You actually, as long as you have glyphs and good speed substats, you probably can go a tanky percent boot, like a defense percent or an HP percent boot would make perfect sense, especially if you're going to be using a speed set or a perception set and you've got some decent glyphs. But for most builds out there, you'll probably want to go with speed. You don't want to let that drop too low. Then for the chest and the gloves, if you're going the support route, you would probably go like either one of each of defense and HP or both defense is perfectly fine. Then obviously you're looking for speed and accuracy and resistance and stuff like that in the substats. The top ones are pretty normal here and pretty easy to come by, but there are the ones that I am using. You're looking for speed, tankiness, accuracy, and resistance. Then if we head on over to the skills section, we can talk about the booking process. Now, they did a lot better job this year. Last year with Pixneal, they released a champion that had, we had 6 books on the A1, plus 2 is 8, and then plus 7 is 15, plus 3 is 18 books last year on the Holiday Fusion champion in Pixneal. So if you contrast that to this year, having the 4 plus the 2 is 6 plus the 3 is 9, it is literally half the books required. So I like it when they keep it in that 8 to 11 range. Once you get up to like 12, 13 and up there, it ends up becoming a big time investment for people to put into a legendary champion, and that costs so much to get the expected value out of the champion. So I really like it when they keep it in that 8 to 11 range. If they go less than that, that's even better, but it's typically a good spot for them to be in, and all of the books are pretty impactful. So if you're going to be using the champion a lot, it's worth it to spend the books on it because you're getting 2 cooldowns on the A2, you're getting a cooldown on the A3, and you don't want to leave that at 5 turns. That would be a little bit rough. And then the A1, you're going to be taking it from an 80 to 100 in terms of the buff chance. So that is a big difference to go from 80 to 100. So all the books are pretty impactful, and the champion's pretty decent. So if you're going to be using it a lot, it is probably worth the 11 books. Then for the masteries, there's a lot of different ways you can go on this champion. Are you going to be trying to use the champion in a clan boss, maybe dungeon clearing scenario? You might want to get War Master or something. You do have 2 different abilities that do damage, but you're not going to be doing damage every turn, so it's more of a little bit more of a support champion. You'll be wasting your tier 6 mastery every time you're casting the A2 when you're just placing the buffs on your team. So it is viable to go for defense and support as well. You both get the decreased accuracy on the A1, so Master Hexer would make that super consistent, but then you also lasting gifts is going to be very good for the block buffs if you can get that for 3 turns and increase defense as well. So a lot makes sense over there on the support tree, and you need accuracy on this champion, so scooping up some of that stuff as well. I don't think Charged Focus is going to be a super good choice on this champion. It sounds good on the surface, but Tatura actually prioritizes the skill here, Otherworld Breach, and in most scenarios when I was doing my testing, was prioritizing this ability here, and we're not placing any debuffs, so we don't need any accuracy for this. So you're typically going to have this ability on cooldown when you are doing the A1 here. That is going to be the only thing that needs accuracy, so you're not going to get a whole lot of value out of Charged Focus. I would probably just go with the healing here, but this is kind of the most general utility defense and support masteries that I went with, as long as you're not using it in the clan boss and you don't need the War Master offense tree or something like that. Now I want to go ahead and show some footage from some of my testing when I was recording stuff, and this is to show you the AI prioritization. So we're going to be in a scenario where we have some enemies, some teammates, and we're going to go ahead and still do the damage dealing ability where it just shows what the champion is prioritizing. And then this is a brutal campaign run of 12-3, kind of the normal spot that a lot of you, 90-something% of you, are going to be farming XP. You can see here that this is the support build that you saw on the video. It's the exact same build, so able to clear it, but not super fast. And then This show is a nightmare. So this is 12-6 Nightmare with the stats and the build that you saw that I just showed you in the video. So it's going to be pretty slow. This is actually sped up to make it a better viewing experience for you, so you're not sitting here for 3 minutes watching my clear of 12-6 Nightmare, but actually solo farmed Nightmare. So I could probably change this to a build more centered around some crit rate, some crit damage, maybe a little bit of lifesteal, some accessories that help me with some shield or recovering some health, a couple of like a lifesteal plus a immortal or something like that. I could probably farm Nightmare in like a minute and a half with this champion at 100% win rate. So not too bad in terms of being able to clear Nightmare solo. There's not very many champions in the game that can do that. I would say probably less than 3 or 4% of the champions in the game can clear the last 12-6 Nightmare solo. So pretty solid there to be able to do that, especially with a support build that isn't built around cranking out a ton of damage. So able to do it there. Then this is going to be the last stage of the hard Doom Tower. So this is floor 119 full auto of the Doom Tower here on the test server, obviously with a pretty solid team around it, with Rotos, Mashaled, Duchess, and Lydia over here. So just showing you that what the champion is going to look like in the context of one of those higher tier Doom Tower runs. Placing the Veil, helping out to keep that super consistent with the Duchess. We're also lowering accuracy to make it a lot easier for our Duchess and our other champions like Rotos to resist certain things the enemies are trying to do to us. And then also just kind of the general utility of placing the freeze. You can see there on the Rotos on the left side. Anytime this champion is hit, you got that chance to place the freeze. And you'll notice on the masteries, I kind of forgot to touch on this, but I did go with the tier 6 mastery Fearsome Presence because it makes that freeze a little bit more reliable. 30% is not the highest percent in the world. That's why you see with the stun set people going with Fearsome Presence, because that 5% takes it from 18% to 23%. So the Fearsome Presence is going to take the passive of this champion that has no cooldown. It's just an inherent passive all the time. It takes it from 30% to 35%. So if you don't need Warmaster, or you don't really need the Eagle Eye to squeeze out that extra accuracy or something, it's really not the worst choice to get a little bit more value out of that passive. You can see there the freeze going down on the right side there, just to keep that a little bit more consistent. Going from 30 to 35 is really not that bad of idea, and not that bad of a deal. And we were able to go ahead and finish off the last floor with Tatura, Rhyhide in our team, and doing some work with those freezes and different utility that we're bringing to the team. Okay, and now for the fun part. Let's dive into where I talk about the grades that I'm going to give out for this champion when I add it to my tier list that you see right here. And then I'll talk about if there's anything that I would change and how I would grade Plarium in terms of designing this champion. So we'll just kind of scroll through and go over this together. We've got Tatura, Rhyhide, High Elves, Legendary, Spirit Affinity, grades out as an 8.7 on a 1 to 10 scale, so pretty solid, not bad at all. Book value of 9, only takes 11 books, and they're all pretty impactful, and the champion's pretty solid. I can't quite go 10 because my book value, there are some areas where I go up to 12 for like super meta scores for 11 and 12, because what I don't want to happen is for 100 champions to be a 10 in the arena. I want people to know the difference between Siphi and Tormund. So that's why I do super meta scores, and I go up to 11 and 12 in some areas, but I can't quite go to 10 on book value, but definitely worth it. Clan Moss, 7, you're getting some toughness and utility there, but not going to be one of the best in the game. And going to be really solid in the arena. Makes sense in a lot of those tanky teams where you're getting some guaranteed value. You're getting the CC from the freezes. You're lowering accuracy on somebody that you can target with your A1. So going to be pretty solid. It makes sense in a lot of defensive teams. XP farm 7, like I showed, can definitely clear Nightmare and Brutal and all that, but not going to be some sort of speed farmer or anything. Going to be really good in Faction Wars and Doom Tower. You're getting the defense, the Veil, you're lowering accuracy of bosses, the passive is providing some CC, so going to be definitely viable and extremely good in a lot of different teams for those two areas of the game. Then for the Dragon, the Dragon's more of a speed run where the decreased accuracy is definitely nice because the Dragon does do debuffs, but I don't think it's going to be like a super meta or anything. But the increased defense and the block debuffs is definitely amazing, so definitely worth a 10. Spider and Fire Knight, they're a little bit more special in terms of the mechanics required. So with the single hit A1 and stuff like that, no HP burn or anything. So I don't think going to be super meta in the Spider or Fire Knight or anything. The Golem actually ignores defense if you leave the minions alive. So the increased defense is not quite as impactful, but still very solid in the Ice Golem. And then we get into the keeps where they're all kind of, the keeps are a little bit easier to define here, but I do think worth noting that going to be really good in the void keep, because you got an A1 that's going to lower accuracy. The void keep boss is trying to place those poisons and stuff. So really good in that fight is going to be decreased accuracy and continuous heal. So things like Bad Alcazar to help mitigate those heals, anything like that's going to be amazing in the void keep. But other than that, really nothing super impactful in terms of the keeps. But I need to slide that over a little bit because it wasn't letting me show you the last grade there with the Arcane Keep. Going to be really good in the Arcane Keep because you get some pretty consistent buffs on your team, which is a good mechanic for that dungeon. So all in all, pretty solid grades here in terms of grading out as a champion. Going to be useful in a lot of different areas of the game. So I don't think like a top 10 or 15 legendary in the game or anything, but definitely very solid for a lot of accounts out there and going to make sense in a lot of different teams and areas of the game. And I think also worth showing you this right here that I hosted on the YouTube channel, a poll asking the community their first impressions of Tatura as a champion. And we got a decent sample size, a few thousand votes. So I thought you might get some use out of this. And it looks like the community consensus so far, at least in my community, is going to be about an A+ in terms of the design of a champion. Not quite hitting S, but a very solid 58% majority of people feeling good about an A grade for this champion as a fusion. And I kind of agree with the spread here, as I said in my wrap-up video that I recorded previously. I kind of agree with this layout of the you see that the F, you get some F is actually more grades than C. You get some people that are like, no, it's an F. But the champion's obviously not an F in my opinion. But I think this distribution is pretty fair, and I would tend to agree with it. So all in all, is there anything that I would change about this champion now that I've tested it? Really, the only thing, like I said earlier in the video, that stands out to me, I would probably give a little bit more HP. I think the HP is a little bit low. Maybe like just 1,000 more, like 21,000 HP instead of. I'm not talking like buff it up like crazy. I understand it's a defense scaling champion, but the HP maybe is a little bit low because the defense isn't insane. We see some champions up closer to 1,600 and stuff like that. So with it being a Veil kind of ally protector, I would have given a little bit more HP if the defense is only going to be 1,432. But in terms of the kit, I like how the passive does require accuracy to get some value out of some CC, because it would be unfortunate if this was the only reason for us to get accuracy, because the A2 and the A3, we obviously don't need any accuracy. So I do like how the passive gave us a little bit more incentive to get good value out of building accuracy on this champion. You know, I think it would have been nice if this was a 3-turn cooldown, fully booked. Like, I don't think this champion would have been too good if this was a 3-turn cooldown, but I do get how the constant perfect Veil, maybe make it a 3-turn cooldown, but make it Veil instead of perfect Veil. Like I don't know, but all in all, I'm mostly okay with it. I think I would give them like a 9 out of 10. I think they did a pretty good job in designing this. Last year was like a 1 or 2 out of 10 with Pixneal. But there's really not, I mean, other than the HP being a tad low, I think most of this makes sense, and I think it's a solid addition to most people's rosters. I don't think it's a top 10 legendary in the game. It's not Siphi, Warlord, Hegemon, or you know, any of these super platinum meta champions, but I think it makes sense in a lot of different areas of the game, especially with the Hydra. I think it'll make sense in a lot of different Hydra compositions now that we need to build 3 different teams for that. I think people will get some value out of using this in a Hydra composition, trying to target that certain head that you're going after to keep its accuracy permanently lowered and the increased defense and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, but definitely not going to be amazing in the Hydra. I would probably give it like an 8 out of 10 or so if I graded it in the Hydra when I add that to the tier list finally. But yeah, that would be my consensus after testing it and really doing a deep dive here, is I would give Plarium a 9 out of 10, and I agree with the community sentiment, A+, but not quite an S tier champion. So that is going to do it for me on this one. Let me know what you think down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I always enjoy hearing your input on topics like this as well, and especially because when a champion is this new, my grades on the tier list are subject to change. So if I'm hearing an opinion that is very common, I am not against changing my grades if it turns out that most people think that I'm wrong on a grade or something like that. So that's going to do it for me on this one. As always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe on your way out, because lots more informative content coming your way every single day. As always, thanks for watching. Peace.